Good morning, grade 9 students. In this session, we are going to continue with our chapter Genetics. Here's part 5. In this session, we're going to talk about the laws of heredity. The laws of heredity is semester 3, week 13. So first, let's talk about the laws of Mendel. These are the laws of heredity. There are three laws. Mendel is a biologist who works on the heredity, who discovered the laws of heredity, and who works throughout all the years about the heredity. So first law. First law, it's always going to be applied in the first generation. It's called law of uniformity of hybrids of the first generation. What's the meaning of this? Law of uniformity of hybrids of the first generation F1. Uniformity meaning that all of them they are the same, they are identical, they are similar to each other. For example, remember when we did the cross? For example, let's say long hair with short hair. All of them, they are long. And here the parents, they are pure. So for example, long hair, we cross it with short hair. So long crossed with short. So first, long was crossed with short. Long, let's say long is the dominant and it's a pure, so LL. Crossed with SS, S small, S small. So all of them, the F1, they will be L, they take L allele and they take S. So 100% they are LS, the F1 generation. So here the F1, they are pure or hybrid. Sure, they are hybrid. Why? Because they have two different alleles. So here all the hybrids of the F1, they are identical, meaning that all of them, they have long hair and they have the same phenotype as well as the same genotype. So first you have to study this law, law of uniformity of the hybrids of the F1 generation, of the first generation. What does this mean? This means that all of the F1, they are identical, they are the same. Words apply this law. It's called the first law. So it's applied only on the first generation, on the F1. So whenever we have the first generation and they ask you which law is applied here, it's always the first law of heredity, law of uniformity of hybrids of the F1. So all the F1, they are identical. What the meaning of hybrid? They are heterozygous. So this is the first law, Mendel's first law. Mendel, who with the biologist who discovered these laws. So we call it Mendel's first law. Moving now to the second law. Law of uniformity of the first F1 generation. We said that all F1, they are hybrid, they are identical, they have the same phenotype as well as the same genotype. Moving now to the second law. Second law, law of independent segregation or disjunction of the traits or factor. What does this mean? The traits or the factor of F1. Remember that we talk about long and short. And the F1 طلعوا معنا كلهم they are LS. They have genotype L capital, S small. And we assume that the long is the dominant and the short is the recessive. What the meaning of law of independent segregation of the F1 or of the traits? Here we have separation of the gametes. Here we have L gamete and we have S as a gamete. So L it's 50% and S is going to be 50%. This is law of independent segregation or disjunction of the traits or the factors. So this is called the law of independent segregation. So the gametes they are separated. L 50%, S 50%. So if I ask you, yeah, Mariam, if I want to work proportion 50%, it will be what? If I want to work proportion, yeah, Mariam. Yes, Mariam. If I want to work proportion, what do we have to put instead of 50%? Oh, let's move to Amir. What do you think, Amir? 50%?
1/2.
Very good. If you want to work in proportion 1/2, and this 50% is 1/2. So here we have segregation of the traits or the factors. The traits of the hybrid of F1, thank you Amir, they are separated independently of one another during the formation of the gametes. Here LS we have separation. L will give 50%, S will give 50%. This is called law of independent segregation or disjunction. Separation or disjunction being that they are separated from each other. This is the second law. Always is applied with the F2. F1 crossed with F1. Okay? So their union with another gamete of another hybrid will give the F2. What do we call the cross يا هادي فضل whenever we cross F1 crossed with F1? What do we call this cross? Yes, هادي فضل. What do we call the cross whenever we cross F1 with F1? Good. Good. Yasmina, what do we
Can
call
I
the
tell you?
cross whenever we cross F1 with F1?
Can I
Nurjan,
say it?
yes, what do you think?
Self cross.
Self
Self
cross.
cross.
Very good. It's self cross. Whenever we cross F1 with F1, it's called the self cross, crossing F1 with itself. So here, F1 with F1, it gives what? It will give the F2, will lead to the formation of F2. This is called the self cross. So till now, we knew or we explained or we discovered two laws. The first law, law of uniformity of the first generation. What the meaning of this? Meaning that all the F1, they are uniform. They are identical. They are the same. They have the same phenotype and the same genotype. Where do we have this law? P F1. So we have it only in the F1. This is the first law. You have to study the law and its explanation. Second law, law of independent segregation or disjunction of the traits. The traits of F1, they are separated independently during the formation of gametes. Whenever they meet, they lead to the F2. So F1 with F1 will lead to the F2. In the F2, we have different phenotypes. This is called the heterogeneity of the F2. Third law, law of purity of gametes. What's the meaning of law of purity of gametes? Law of purity of gametes, this is the third law. It's impossible to have a certain gamete or to find a certain gamete that is carrying two alleles at the same time. For example, here we have LS, let's say. LS, what do you think, Abbas Haitian? LS, if you have this genotype, long and short, how many different type of gametes do you have to give? Yes, Abbas.
Oh, yes, I was on. No, I don't know why it's mute the
Okay,
mic.
yes, Abbas. So we have LS as a genotype. How many different gametes do we have? How many different gametes do we have? Yes?
One,
One. What is this gamete? We have LS, two different alleles. How many gametes? Here we have L will be 50%, and
and
S will be also 50%.
50.
Can you say that we have only one gamete LS 50%? Can we say this?
No,
No, it's not applicable. It doesn't occur, this one. And this is the explanation of the third law. Third law, it's impossible to find certain gamete carrying two alleles at the same time. ما في عندي gamete containing two alleles at the same time. Either L or S. We can't
S.
have both alleles at the same time. Or if we have, let's say, LL, how many different type of gamete does it give you, Abbas? LL. How many different type or types of gametes? What do you think, Sarah Khalifa? LL, how many different types of gametes? It will give only one type of gametes. It's L 100%. It will give only one type of gamete, which is L 100%. So this is the third law. Law of purity of the gametes. All the gametes, they are identical or they are similar. It's impossible to have two alleles at the same time. This is whether they are two identical alleles or they are different. So activity 2, it's the laws of heredity on page 138, 139 on your book. So here, application. This application will help you to understand what we have explained. This application was for the Mendel. So Mendel, it's upon crossing a pure line of smooth piece with a pure line of wrinkled piece. So piece, these are the wrinkled piece and the smooth piece. So حبات بازella, or you want some of them they are smooth like this figure, and other they are wrinkled like this figure. So here we have two different types of piece, smooth and wrinkled. They are pure. What the meaning of pure? What the meaning of pure? Yes. What the meaning of pure? What do you think, Yasmina? What the meaning of pure? Homozygous or heterozygous?
Yes, sir.
What the meaning
It's
of pure?
homozygous.
Homozygous. So upon crossing, Yasmina, pure line of smooth piece with a pure line of wrinkle. All the obtained piece, they are smooth. Determine the dominant and recessive allele. Yes.
The dominant is the
First of all, you
smooth
have to
piece.
answer as we studied before. What do you have to say? Since all the F,
Since all of one are smooth,
like
like one of the piece.
one of the
Uh,
parents, you can say.
yes.
Yes. So
So the smooth piece are the dominant
smooth allele,
over the
not a smooth
recessive,
speed. Smooth allele is dominant over the wrinkled, which is recessive.
which is yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so here we determine the dominant and recessive. So the smooth is the dominant. So we're going to give it this the letter S capital. And the wrinkled is the recessive. We give it the symbol W smooth. Part 2, cross 2. Upon crossing self-fertilization of F1 plants. F1, they are pure. They are, sorry, F1, the first generation, they are smooth. So they have the genotype SW. So upon crossing F1 with F1, we obtain the following results. 5 plants with wrinkled seeds and 15 with smooth seeds. Lana, what do you think? What do we call the cross whenever we cross two F1 individuals? When we cross two F1 individuals, what do we call the cross? Yes, Lana. Lana, can you hear me?
Yes, self-cross.
Sulfur cross. Whenever we cross two F1 individuals, it's called the sulfur cross. Thank you. Moving to the results. We have 5 plants with wrinkled seeds and 15 plants with smooth seeds. If I ask you, I wanna calculate the percentage of the smooth, and I wanna calculate the percentage of the wrinkled. By raising your hand, who can tell me how can we calculate this? What do we have to do? If we wanna calculate the percentage of each of these. Let's see if you review the notes or not. Fatima Manna, what do you think? How can we calculate the percentage? Fadal Basma, what do you think? How can we calculate the percentage?
Can you repeat that question?
How can we calculate the percentage of the smooth seeds and the wrinkled seeds? Great, great. This is a good step. Serene Bitar, how can you know how to calculate the percentage of the smooth seeds and that of the wrinkled seeds? Yes, Serene Bitar. Good, good stuff. By the way, all the muted students اللي ما عم بيحكوا zero attendance. أنا ما هحسب attendance for today. Thank you. Mariam Claire. Yes, what do you think يا مريم?
Percent of x is equal to x over total times
أنا بدي السموث.
1.
How can we calculate the smooth? أول شيء, first step, we have to calculate the total. What is the total?
Okay.
Total is equal to what? 5 plus 15, it's equal to 20. So how can we
Yes.
calculate the percentage of the smooth? Number of the smooth is 15. So 15 over 20 times 100. By calculating it, it will be 75%. However, percentage of the wrinkle, number of the wrinkle is 5 over the total, which is 20 times 100. So it will be 25%. Here, if they ask you to calculate the percentage. Moving now to the solution. Determine the dominant and the recessive allele. Whenever they said determine, we have to justify. You don't have the smooth allele is dominant, and Yasmina, pay attention, we don't have to say the smooth P is the dominant. The smooth allele and the wrinkled allele.
Okay.
Which of the Mendel's laws is verified? Here we have the first cross. We have the F1 generation. What did he say? Which law is the first law? Indicate the genotype of the parents and that of F1. Whenever they said indicate, you don't have to justify it. So since all the F1 P's are smooth, like one of the parents, then pay attention here, then the smooth allele is dominant over the wrinkled allele. ما بقول smooth P wrinkled P. The smooth allele is dominant over the wrinkled allele, which is recessive. Here we have the F1. We got the F1. So always in the F1, which law is applied? Mendel's first law. If we didn't study the law, we can't answer this question. So Mendel's first law, law of uniformity of all the F1 hybrids. So all the F1, they are uniform. They have the same genotype and the same phenotype. All of them, they are smooth. So this is Mendel's first law, always in the F1 generation. It's applied or verified always in the first generation, in the F1. Smooth parents, they are pure, and the smooth is dominant. So it's going to be SS. Wrinkled is recessive, and it's pure. It's going to be WW. And the F1, they took S and they took W, so they are SW respectively. So here they are the genotypes of the smooth, wrinkled, and F1. Smooth, SS. Wrinkled, WW. F1, they are S and W. So they get S from one parent and W from another. So this is called the F1 generation. Moving now to the note. Here, we can't solve this question part C unless we have to give the symbols. Here, I didn't mention that you have to give the symbols, even though I have to write the symbols before I start with the genotype. So let S capital be the symbol of the smooth allele dominant over the recessive wrinkled allele. Let W small be the symbol of the wrinkled allele, which is recessive with respect to the normal dominant allele. Referring to cross 2, give the gametes produced by the F1. Part B, to which hereditary laws did you refer? State them. Here we have in the second cross F1 with F1, they will give F2. Calculate the proportion. You don't need the percentage, they need the proportion here. So genotype of the F1, we said that it's SW. So how many gametes? They will give 2 gametes. Either S, 50%, and W, 50%. Or if I want to work it as proportion, S, 1 over 2, and W small, 1 over 2. Mendel's laws that are applied upon crossing F1 with F1, you have to study them. They are the second and the third. So قلنا دايما the first law, Mendel's first law in the F1 generation. In the F2, Mendel's law second and third. Second law of Mendel, law of independent segregation of alleles. They separate during the formation of gametes. Law of purity of gamete, which is the third law. Each gamete carries only one allele. يعني هون هذا الجميت only one allele. And this gamete only one allele. So you have to study this. Mendel's second and third law, they are when we have F1 crossed with F1, and whenever we have the F2. While Mendel's first law, when we have the F1, the first generation. And you have to study the laws. How to calculate the proportion. Already we solved this before, twice and 3 times even. First of all, we have to take the smallest number. We have 5 and we have 15, so we take the 5. Divide by them. Wrinkled, it's 5 over 5, it gives 1. Smooth, it's 15 over 5, it gives a 3. Then we have to add the numbers. 3 plus 1, they gave 4. So 1 over 4 is for the wrinkled, and the 3 over 4 is for the smooth. So first, I repeat, you take the smallest number, then you divide all the numbers by it. The obtained numbers, we add them. 3 plus 1, they are 4. So 1 over 4 for the wrinkled, and the 3 over 4 for the smooth. Now, perform the essential factorial analysis to verify the results of both crosses. In cross 1, what do we have? In cross 1, first of all, we have to write phenotype. Always in the factorial analysis, we have to start with phenotype, male crossed with female. One of them is smooth, and the second it was wrinkled. This is the phenotype. In the F1, the parents, they are pure. So genotype, male, it's pure, and the smooth is dominant, so it's SS. Crossed with the female is wrinkled, W small, W small. Then we move to the third step, which is the gametes. Gametes. In the gametes, what do we have? We have only one type of gamete, which is the S here. It's 1 over 1, since I'm going to work in proportion in this question. Since they ask you to calculate the proportion, so you have to work in proportion. And in WW only, we have one type of gamete, which is the W. It's 1 over 1. So pay attention to this. They ask you to calculate the proportion, so they want you to solve the proportion. Or whenever they said you have to calculate the proportions or to verify the proportion, you have to work in proportion. If they said percentage, you have to work in percentage. Here we draw the table of cross, and then we're going to move to the table of result. Sure, you draw it using a pencil. This is the male, and this is the female. So here in the male we have S, which is 1 over 1, and here we have W small, which is 1 over 1. So they are to be SW 1 over 1, so it's 100% 1 over 1. So table of results, we divide it into genotype and phenotype. So in the genotype, we'll give the phenotype, genotype, and here we have put phenotype. And the phenotype and genotype we have SW 1 over 1. So 1 over 1, we will have smooth. So this is the F1. F1, they are SW. So therefore, results are verified. You have to write it. Don't forget to write it. So here, this is the genotype of F1. It's SW. Now, we're going to move to the cross 2. Cross 2 is F1 with F1. So first, we have to start with the phenotype. Phenotype, male crossed with female. Adam Yahya, what do you think? Male and female, F1 with F1. Male is smooth and the female is smooth. What is the genotype of each of them? Smooth and smooth.
S S bigger and S smaller.
S bigger and S smaller. From where did you get the S small?
Genotype.
From where did you get S small? ما في معنى S small. From where did you get the S small? We have S and we have W. So the male will be S W, and also the female will be S W. The gametes, we have two different alleles, so we have two different gametes. So gametes of the symbol gamma. So in the male, we have S and we have W as well. You have to put them in the symbol of the male. Here we have S and we have small w. So here it's 1 over 2, and this is 1 over 2. And here's the female. Also we have two different gametes since we have two alleles, two different alleles. Here we have S capital, it's 1 over 2. And here we have W small, 1 over 2. Then we move to the table of cross, and finally we move to the table of results. The table of cross, you have to divide it into 2, and here we have to divide it into 2. We have male and female. So this is the male, and this is the female. Male, we have S 1 over 2, and we have W 1 over 2. Here we have S 1 over 2, and we have W 1 over 2. So here we have SS, it's 1 over 2 times 1 over 2 in math, numerator by numerator, denominator by denominator, it's 1 over 4. And then we have SW, it's 1 over 4. Then we have also SW 1 over 4. And finally we have WW, it's 1 over 4. Finally, we're going to draw the table of results. They should be 3 over 4 smooth and 1 over 4 the wrinkled as we get the results. So the smooth, they will be, first of all, let's start the genotype. I'm going to write geno and pheno, and the quiz, you have to write genotype and phenotype, since to save time only. So genotype, SS, it's 1 over 4. We don't have other than this, only one SS. SW, we have, here it's SW, and here it's another 1. So 1 over 4 plus 1 over 4 is going to be 1 over 2. So SW, it's 1 over 2. And the last one is WW, 1 over 4. So as a summary, 1 over 4 SS and 1 over 2 SW. Since the smooth is dominant, so these two will be smooth. So 1 over 4 plus 1 over 2 will be 3 over 4. So 3 over 4 will be smooth. While the 1 over 4 remaining, it's recessive and should be expressed only in the case of homozygous, so it's wrinkled. So here, wrinkled 1 over 4, smooth, it's a 3 over 4. So therefore, don't forget to write it since they want you to verify the results. Therefore, results are verified. So here, in this session, we explain the 3 laws of Mendel. So you have to study them, the 3 laws of Mendel. 3 laws of Mendel, they are the first law and the second law and the third law. We said that the first law, always you have to study it, and you have to know the title of this law. You have to know the first law is applied only, اسمه first law, so first generation. Second law is law of independent segregation or disjunction of the traits or the factors. It's applied in the second generation in the F2 as well as the third law. لازم أحفظهم. You have to study them and you have to know these rules as well.